Bill Gross, real estate broker in Los Angeles, California, the LAProbateExpert.com. This is our Tuesday afternoon real estate investing Zoom.com. We do every Tuesday afternoon at 3 p.m. Pacific time, 6 p.m. Eastern. We stream it live on Facebook and YouTube, as well as record it and send it out as well. Our goal every week is to help brand new investors get started, seasoned investors find some deals, real estate agents make some connections to get in the middle and get paid. So this is all about making more money, earning some income, as well as building wealth, using real estate as a primary vehicle. We also have vendors who come on who service our community and help us. And we have a special guest today who's still working on logging in, who's an estate planning attorney. We'll talk about some of those unique issues that they get involved with real estate shortly. So just a couple of things to add in. As I mentioned, we do record this every week, and it goes out to our YouTube channel, which is Bill Gross EXP. Go to YouTube, Bill Gross EXP. And then Thursday, we have another program we do, ProbateWeekly.com. We talk about all things related to probate and attorneys, and there's some crossover for investors there. I don't know necessarily that for any investor it's the right thing to focus in 100% on, but our goal there is that if you're an investor, wholesaler, or bird dogger, you find a deal, title is an issue, then probably probate is probably part of the solution, or probably involves part of the solution as well. So let's see here. I see April is on, and but we're muted. We just need to unmute.
Hi, everyone. I'm here.
Hey, April, there you are. How you doing?
I am. I'm good. How are you guys doing today?
Good. So I want to introduce you to our special guest today. April Shemtov is an estate planning attorney. I knew her before she was married, before she had kids. I don't know if I knew that you were an attorney at the time. I guess she must have been. I guess I wasn't paying attention. I wasn't as involved in probate at the time when we met. There's a couple years gap. And I'll just share with you, as a realtor, I'm always looking to do business development as well as find resources for clients. And so I started going to a couple estate planning seminars. This is pre-COVID, we can go in person. And I thought I recognized the name, and I went to a seminar that this attorney was putting on in the Valley. And if you know, I live in West LA, so I was driving a little bit out of my way to get there. But I saw right away, recognized April. We knew her, like I said, back when she was single and lost in the single world, and came to see her. And she's later married and has kids and has a successful legal practice. So please help me welcome everybody, April Shemtov.
Thank you for having me, Bill. I really appreciate it. It's always so nice to be here. So for those of you who are a little bit connected with real estate development, real estate investing, I would love to be a resource to you all for estate planning. The reason why people do, or I should start with the reason why people avoid doing estate planning, there's sometimes like a fear around, I don't want to talk about death, or this is kind of a taboo subject, let's not talk about it. But I will tell you from the horror stories that I've seen from clients, those clients that have actually taken the time to plan and plan properly, and I mean not to do a poor planning or to cut corners, and I'll tell you what I mean in a minute, but the people who've really taken the time to plan, their families are very grateful and happy, because oftentimes life has its twists and turns and unexpected things happen. And we've all lived through the last year and a half, 2 years of pandemic. And so we want to expect the unexpected and be prepared for it. Sort of the reason I want to give you guys some reasons why people might want to think about having an estate plan and go through that with you guys. So at the very first consultation that I have with clients, and I do give free consultations because it's really important to be able to establish rapport and to talk about your situation, because we may not be the right fit, and I recognize that. So I do free estate consultations, and one of the things that I want to find out from you is who is it that you want to leave in charge of your assets in the event of incapacity, in the event of a disability, if something were to happen to you unexpectedly? Who do you trust in this world to step in and manage your financial affairs if you're not able to do so yourself? So a lot of what I want you guys to think about with estate planning is not just death and dying, but it's also planning for incapacity. And if somebody becomes disabled or God forbid something happens, it could be a long period of time that they're not able to manage their affairs. And it's really, really important to have somebody that you know and trust in that position. So that's one thing. Because if you don't, what happens is a really messy court process called a conservatorship, if any of you guys have heard of that. And the last thing that you want is for your loved ones to have to spend tons of money and go through the legal hassle of being in court to have somebody legally appointed as your guardian. So we definitely want to avoid that. The other thing is, who do you want to leave in charge of making healthcare decisions for you? Because if something unexpected happens to you, you want to make sure that it's your favorite sister, your brother, your best friend. You want to be in charge of appointing that person that's going to be making those really important medical decisions if you're not able to make those for yourself.
Well, let's hold on right there. Let me just ask a question real quick. So when somebody doesn't make those decisions ahead of time, or maybe more particular, have you had particular cases where people did make those decisions ahead of time and tried to after the fact?
Absolutely. And that's where it gets really stressful, really messy. It takes a long time to get decisions made. And it's a much cleaner process when you planned ahead.
Right.
The other thing is that you get to decide what happens to your assets, who gets them, how they get them, when they get them. So I'll give you an example. A lot of times people will do an estate plan where they designate all their assets to go outright to their beneficiaries. So what that means is when the person passes away, let's say they die with $1 million and they have 2 kids, each one gets $500,000. Well, what if one of your children is getting a divorce? Or what if they're getting sued by their business partner? Or what if they just filed for bankruptcy? There's a myriad of situations that can happen where they don't necessarily want to get the money right now because their creditors are going to come in and swoop it. So when you do the right kind of planning, you make sure that you leave your assets in a way where they're protected for your loved ones. And that's important because you worked really hard to have these assets to pass on. The last thing you want is for somebody to come in and take that away from your loved ones. So that's where planning is really important. Bill, you look like you have another question.
Well, I have a lot. That's why I brought you on. That's why I invited you to call, because this is an area, people ask all the time, how do I prepare to buy property as an investor, right? We have people on the call who have jobs, have money saved, they're looking at buying a property, buying a multifamily. But the last thing we do is work all that hard, get a property, make money on it, and then lose control of it if you're disabled, or if you pass, not be able to pass it on to your family. So explain, how does this protect somebody who's investing property now for the long run? What does this do for them?
Okay, that's a good question. So first of all, you're touching on something really important, which is the title of assets, how assets are held. So this is where we talk about funding your trust. So it's not just important to set up a living trust, and which, by the way, is revocable and amendable at any time. But what you want to make sure that you're doing is putting the assets where you're going to retitle them into the name of your trust. So when you buy property, you've got to make sure that the deed aligns with the name of your trust. Otherwise, what happens is, if something happens to you, it's, again, a very long, lengthy process in court to get that property into your trust. And it's a lot of money, it's a lot of time, and it's a lot of hassle. So
I literally have a client who was one of the most successful real estate investors I know, with a lot of properties. He had severe health decline to where he needed a conservatorship appointed, which meant that every transaction had to be approved by the court. Then they set up a trust at the end of a bunch of money being spent to move in the remaining property into the trust, what was left after they disposed of a chunk of it. And they left out one and had to do a probate. So I literally have one customer who had conservatorship property sold, trust property sold, and probate property sold. So he's paying attorneys all along the way to set these assets. So that's what you would avoid in this process, right?
Right. And sometimes people don't want to spend the money to do a trust. Their beneficiaries and loved ones are going to spend a lot more, if you don't do this upfront.
A lot more.
So that's what people don't, people really need to understand, like it costs a lot more not to plan than to plan.
Can investors who buy property, I find investors running out to set up LLCs. Does the trust provide some degree of protection for people buying property as investors?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand your question.
I've seen investors who, when they get started, want to set up an LLC to buy their property and keep it in a separate entity. Can you buy property, or might you want to buy property using a trust? Is that a way to protect your assets as well?
No.
Okay. So it might create some privacy because you can name it whatever you want.
The trust, what it primarily function is for probate avoidance and for you to decide how you want your assets distributed, who you want it to manage, but it doesn't give you that, the basic living trust does not give you asset protection from lawsuits just because you're putting it in a trust. There's a whole other planning to do asset protection that's outside the realm of setting up a living trust.
Okay. But
Yeah.
it's within estate planning, it's just not part of the living trust part. It's the same
Correct.
genre.
Correct. Yes.
So it's something somebody should do maybe at the same time, and the living trust is one of the tools of that process.
Correct.
And then also, does the estate plan help them avoid paying excess taxes while they're alive and or after they're gone?
So tax planning is again something where your financial advisor, your accountant, CPA, your estate planning, you have a team of people that are working towards a strategy of, how do I maximize the assets that I can pass on to the next generation?
Right.
And there's definitely a component of that.
Got it.
Something that I want to mention to you guys, the reason why it's important to set up a trust too is even though like right now all your beneficiaries are alive and well, I've seen cases where down the road there's, God forbid, an accident or a disability or something happens later. And if your trust doesn't have all of these provisions for the unexpected, then I've seen beneficiaries who are supposed to inherit money, but they're disabled and they can't get the money. They can't manage the money. And if there's not specific provisions, they can be get in trouble and lose government benefits. So we definitely want to make sure that we address all of these scenario what ifs and have a comprehensive plan.
One of the most famous real estate investors, Bigger Pockets podcast, talks about buying a property for his children when they're born, and he pays off the mortgage over time. So when they're college age, they have property, and his goal in his case is they should get into real estate instead of going to college. But either way, college is paid for or not. But obviously, if you're going to buy property for your children, then estate planning is another thing you might think about, how to make it for them without them having control too early, that not wasting all the money at one time. How might estate planning figure into that process?
A very common mistake that people do is add their children to title. Okay, that's a really common mistake. One is because if that child gets divorced or sued, that asset is subject to their creditors. But another thing is that they don't get to step up in the basis when the parent dies, and that's important for a part of the property. So if you leave an asset after you pass away, that child or beneficiary can get that asset basis stepped up, and that's important for tax planning as well.
So explain what a step up means, right? I think you have a sense of it. So a step up is what? When you inherit the property, you assume it based on the value the day of the decedent passing, not when they bought it, right?
Right. So if a parent buys a property for $1 million and then when they pass away, it's worth $2 million, that son or daughter inheriting the property are going to get it at $2 million and not at the $1 million.
Right.
And again, this is all discussions that I have with people in my consultations because every estate plan is different. And so we have to tailor this. It's not like a boilerplate. Here you go. There's your trust. We really talk about your assets, your finances, your beneficiaries, and make the best plan for you for your scenario.
Got it. The step-up basis is the tax basis, which applies in federal tax, as I understand it. Does that apply in California tax as well?
Yeah.
So we're not here again. Disclaimer: I'm not an attorney. April is. She's not giving legal advice today. We're talking about general terms.
Yeah. Whatever I say today is not legal advice. Thank you, Bill.
And all these things you should tell your attorney and your accountant. Though I think April would love to talk to you about being your attorney you need to meet with her and make that formal relationship rather than just listen to a YouTube and assume that this is legal. So we're talking general terms.
Correct.
But the step-up basis has to do with the basis, and then that would apply to your federal taxes, and then as I understand it, California taxes as well. Hand up, Marcy Green, Sea Green Financial. What's going on, Marcy?
Okay, if you don't have children and you want to leave your property, your home, to your nearest relatives, in this case, a niece and a nephew, is there any possibility to leave it to them on a stepped-up basis, or what current market value is?
So again, I hate to be this is the kind of specific planning I would do with you one-on-one and not for this forum. This is kind of keeping it high level informational purposes right now.
Yeah, I can say from personal
to discuss it with
experience.
you offline.
Right. When a person passes, they're responsible for their taxes, and so they would pay it, and then they're then gifting the property to an heir. And then the question you have, Marcy, really is not about the step up; it's about the value of the property being given to the heir. And so that's why you would have an estate plan to minimize or limit the amount that's being transferred that's taxable. But I don't think we're really talking about the value of the property. The step up has to do with the estate, how it's considered before they pass, and they're going to pay taxes based on their experience. But the question you really ask is how do you minimize the transfer of the assets afterwards, and that's why you might want to meet with an attorney or April to talk about that in detail.
One thing also is even if you already have a plan, you want to get it reviewed every 3 to 5 years because the law changes and you want to make sure that it's still a good plan. So a plan that you did 10 or 15 years ago may not be the right plan for you today. So that's really important. Sometimes I'll talk to clients and they say, oh, I already had an estate plan. Well, how long ago did you do it? Oh, when we got married 20 years ago. Well, you should probably have it looked at just to make sure. Because we oftentimes
you reminded me that
with the old law in mind.
Well, there's changes in law.
Yeah.
There's changes in court decisions, and there's changes in your life, right? Like in my case, when we drew up our estate plan, my brother and sister were the natural people to handle things. Now I have an adult daughter and an adult son-in-law that we have a great relationship with to make sense. And so it's my daughter and son-in-law just had a baby. So now who's going to be in charge of making those decisions? And everybody gets along today. Nobody has a disagreement, but nobody has a disagreement until they have a disagreement. When they have a disagreement, that's where things get
wherever money is involved.
Absolutely. I would say that you throw money in the pot, you leave it there long enough, somebody's going to get upset about something. And so that's why you want things handled efficiently and quickly. The longer these things get drawn out, whether it be a trust or a probate, just inevitably somebody has another opinion, there's some hard feelings. The next thing you know, it's kind of like a hockey fight. They throw the gloves down, hire attorneys, and jump in the middle of the ice and start throwing punches. So you mentioned about the importance of reviewing a trust. How about funding the trust? How many people do you know have created a trust and either forgot to put the assets in the trust, or they acquired assets later outside the trust, or they took it out to refinance and put it back in? How often does that happen? And is that a reason why you should get it checked every 5 years?
A lot. That's why you got to review your assets every so often, make sure they're all in the name of the trust. Like you just mentioned, 3 very common mistakes is taking your asset outside the trust and doing a refinance because the lender requires that, and then forgetting to put it back in to redeed it to the trust. After acquired property that you've bought, after you bought your trust, you have a rental, a new unit, or a new investment property that, oh, you forgot to put it in the name of your trust. And that just, what happens is later it just causes a pretty hefty expense, lawyer fees really in court to go to court and do a petition to get that asset put back into the trust. There's assets that, for example, that are retirement assets. Those are not governed by your living trust. Those are when you establish with the institution a beneficiary designation form. And sometimes, you really have to go through every few years and make sure that whoever you listed when you first opened the account is still who you want, because There's definitely been cases where a couple was married, lovely marriage for 10 years, and husband died, and wife was shocked to find out that his ex-wife, his first wife, was listed as a beneficiary and not the second wife. And the first wife received $500,000. And there's nothing you can do about that because she was legally the beneficiary. So you want to make sure that you've cleaned that up and that you're leaving it to whoever you really want it to go to.
Yeah, I used to go to probate court every day pre-COVID, and every day there was somebody, an ex-wife who claimed that she and the husband got remarried and she wanted half the property as a result. There was the woman who lived with a guy and never was married, said she was married, who claimed to have half of it. There was the lady who was taking care of the cats and dogs and said that she had a life estate to live there forever. It's just an amazing parade of people with claims, particularly if you have just have a will or don't have a will, and then that makes it much easier versus an estate. When you have a trust or proper estate plan, you can avoid a lot of that. It doesn't mean avoid it all, but you can avoid a lot of that by having it handled outside the court system, or at least start outside the court system. Let me ask you this, Ava, how often do estate plans and living trusts get litigated versus probate? I mean, it must happen from time to time. I see legal actions, and what is the cause of that?
Oh, Bill, there's a whole slew of reasons. I mean, people can say the person did not lack capacity to do the trust or undue influence. There's definitely litigation around trust, but usually one of the big benefits of having a trust is that it gets handled privately within the family, and it doesn't go through public record like a will, where you have to file it with the court and go through that process. So it's a lot quicker to get the assets distributed, a lot cleaner, a lot more efficient.
Now, I believe you and I spoke about this, but I'll ask the question, and I don't want to give away information I shouldn't, but how late in one's life can one move these assets and make these proper decisions? Is it too late if they're of mental capacity still, but they're physically in the last hours, days, weeks?
There's specific guidelines and rules about mental capacity and what you need to execute that. That's where you work with a professional that can help with that.
Mental capacity. How about physical though? I mean, if somebody's mental capacity, but they know they're passing in the next 24 hours, they didn't plan these things, can they get it done?
You're asking me these what if scenarios. I mean, would it stick? I mean, I don't know. Is anybody going to contest it? There's a lot of issues around that. But
is it worth trying?
They usually don't. I've not encountered somebody in my practice that is dying in the next 24 hours and has to have a will. I usually meet with people that are, younger families that are setting up estate plan. They have, children that need guardians, couples that have been remarried that want to redo their plan, blended families and that nature. So
got it. And so, what guidelines would you recommend to somebody? I'm a real estate broker. I deal with people who have houses, they have spouses, they have parents who have houses. As a guideline, what would you advise me as far as mental capacity? What kind of standard should I look for, or what?
Well, that's not for you as a realtor. That's why you have a lawyer that meets with the client, that talks to the client, can assess their mental capacity. So
attorneys make those assessments?
Yeah.
Oh,
and if they have a question, they can get a doctor's note to make sure that, a certification, make sure that they're legally of sound mind to do that.
Got it. And then you mentioned another term, guardianship. Now, just by definition, guardianship is where the court is controlling the process for somebody not able to make their decisions because they're below legal age, right? So maybe parents pass and there's a house and it would go to the son or daughter, but they're not old enough to make those decisions. So again, a proper estate plan would avoid that from happening, right? Theoretically.
Absolutely. So for a court, if you're a judge, the wife's side of the family and the husband's side of the family is equal in their eyes. So if as parents you want, your brother or your sister to raise your kids, you really want to note that so that, that decision is not taken lightly, who to assign as guardians for children. And the judge can look at your estate plan and really respect that and follow your guidelines. I mean, it's not 100%, but it's a lot of weight what the parents wanted.
Oh, so the estate plan still has to be approved by the court. It's not like
the court will look at the parents' wishes and see what they wanted for sure.
Well, interesting. What recommendations, if any, would you have for investors or real estate agents who come across families in these circumstances, and they have property, but they don't have the legal authority? Maybe it's still their parents' name or grandparents' name. What would you recommend as a process to help them, or what do you see happening that maybe you'd advise some of those circumstances to follow?
If you guys have clients that are investing in real estate, that are buying real estate, you should definitely have them speak to an estate planning attorney to make sure that their own house, their investment assets are properly titled. You want to make sure that everything is aligned with their plan, and that way, they're going to avoid a lot of hassle down the road for sure.
Okay. Now, I think we agreed to let you cut you out here shortly. So
Yeah.
let me do this real quick. This is April Shimto. She's an estate planning attorney. I put her website on the screen. It's shimtovlaw.com. And on the website, she has her phone number, 424-234-9979. And I think you mentioned that you offer free consults if people have questions. Is that on the phone or person, or how do you do that?
That's right now I'm doing it on the phone and on Zoom.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Okay, good. So it's on the screen if you're watching it on YouTube. It's going to be on in the chat box here as well. If you have questions, of course, you can reach April. Reach me because I've been in touch with her for a long time. So April, as a friend as well as a professional in the business, I would appreciate you. The rest of you are going to continue the conversation here a little bit. Without her, we're going to cut her loose as she has some family duties to take care of. So April, thank you so much
for this opportunity to speak. I appreciate it.
Sure. Thank you. Okay. Bye. Thank you. So, okay, look, I brought her in because I really believe if you're an investor and you're buying real estate, you have to have your matters organized ahead of time. It's critical. And I see a lot of people, I see a whole program of selling LLCs, but it's bigger than just buying a property in an LLC. This is about planning your assets for your family, for your house, for your directions medically, for you and for your entire family. So she's a great resource. She's not the lowest price because she's a professional. I'm going to give you good advice for somebody who has some assets and needs professional protection. There's living trusts at the lower end, at least get started on something. There's more expensive, more full options as well. But she's a great person to talk to. She offers a free consult. So I would take her up on that. If you own a piece of property and you don't have an estate plan in place, I would at least call her and see what your options are. Okay, so real estate. What's going on in real estate? Who here has something you'd like to report as a win? I have a couple, but anybody here have a real estate purchase they've made recently they're proud of, or a sale they made recently, or a contract they have that they want to share with us?
Bill, this is Anders.
Hey, Anders, what's going on?
So I can, a while back, I mentioned that we had a property in Cypress Park, me and my wife, that we took a long time to get permit for. We were going to flip it and sell it. Mm-hmm. And we were able to sell it. And I to go back again, I brought it up here on this forum, and there were many that suggested see if you can try to sell it to someone, because it seems like everything has gone into just a halt. And about a month, maybe a month ago, we were able to sell it. We didn't make the money that we had hoped for, but we didn't lose anything. And when we sold it, we still did not have the permits we needed. We were gonna, as I said, rehab it and add an ADU. We sold it to the contractor that was working on it, and he used it to when he is in between project, he needs his crew to work on something. So he bought it with that, and he didn't really plan to maybe make any money on it, but he makes money, but not exactly there. So, but he has still not gotten a permit on the ADU, and we're talking more than a year for a permit on an ADU in Los Angeles, and to just get the rehab permit, we talked about 8 or 9 months. So yeah, I just wanted to update people who were on that call. It's a long time ago. It's probably 6 months ago, but and I appreciate all the help and advice we got here because that kind of helped us getting out of that and a lot of headache. And I could also add that we had some our own money invested in that, and we freed that money and bought a property in Columbia, South Carolina, that we are either going to, together with a friend of ours, that we are either going to flip, rent, or maybe Airbnb. We'll see.
Nice. So just a couple of things to add to what you're saying. I work with professional investors and first-time investors all the time. And I can tell you 3 things about investors in every project. They'll always tell me after the fact they paid a little more than they wanted to. They'll always tell me it costs a little bit more or took longer than they planned on it. And they'll always tell me it sold for a little less than they thought it would, even with prices going up. And so that's why when you buy property to fix and flip, you really have to have a margin and hold to it, because it can get so small that it may or may not make sense. Now, Anders, what you got out of it was experience, right? And that's worth something too. And I think if you experience, the other thing I would add to that is I'd be very careful doing anything in Los Angeles right now. I'll share with you, I have a very good client who has a property that he has an ADU on that he was Airbnb-ing. It sounds great. ADU, Airbnb, it sounds like you're matching 2 of the magic pills or magic coins of the last couple of years of investing. In reality, guy comes in on the ADU, on the Airbnb, and as a result, he claims he's a tenant, stops paying rent, starts responding to emails and legalese, and now we have a ADU that's being occupied by somebody not paying rent. So, I would say it just seems to me, South Carolina, Texas, North Carolina, Florida, some of these states are red hot and doing great. In LA, all I keep hearing about is the worsening situation of renters and the worsening situation of time for permits. I had a deal, investor look at a deal recently, and they got fell to escrow because the contractor just said it would take too long to get the permits done. So I'm not sure what that means in the future. I'm still excited about buying and flipping property. I'm excited about just going to go to an owner. I'm excited about immediate flips, but anything that has to do with a lot of work, I would take a second look, sharpen your pencil, and make sure it makes sense, because the people getting burned here in Los Angeles, a lot of investors and a lot of owners.
I would also just like to add, and it was my wife who kind of managed this project, and she put in a lot of margin, which made it possible for us to go over time and still not lose and even make a little bit of money. So she did everything right, and even though it wasn't what we kind of hoped, we did the right thing, and thanks to everyone that helped us with good advice.
Well, great. In case my wife or daughter watching, my wife does everything right too all the time, and usually it's always my fault if anything goes wrong. Okay. Thank you, Anders. I appreciate that. Melissa, hand up with a mask on. What's going on, Melissa?
Hey everybody, Melissa here. I just wanted to let you know that I did a networking event the other day, and I ran into a gentleman that claimed to have this magic wand. Let me just close my door and make it easier. Magic wand for ADUs. So I kind of was like, I don't believe that you can get me a permit in LA for 3 to 6 months. It's not what I'm hearing from some of my other companies and investors that are doing that. He's like, no, I mean, because they have staffing there, it's easier for me versus, because I had kind of questioned him about the South Bay and said, I've had projects over here for 12 months plus that we still haven't been able to get approval on it. I'll put the information in the chat box. It's up to you, if you want to reach out to him and see if it may make sense to people, because I know ADUs is the hottest thing to talk about in LA because we have nowhere else to build. It makes maybe financial sense, but I'll put it in the chat, give him a call. I didn't necessarily do business with him, but I thought it was interesting that he was telling me, no, I mean, I've already completed this project. Here's this, I do have references for that. I mean, hey, if we find somebody that has that magic rabbit that pulls out of a hat, great. So I'll put
I'll tell you, in Los Angeles, in the city, you go to zemus.com. I had somebody give me a story like that too. And I went online, I saw the date it was filed, and I saw the date of certificate of occupancy. The difference is a math equation, and it was like a year and a half. So I think that I won't disparage him in particular, but I will say that one of the challenges of niches is people are attracted to them because they perceive it as easy. It's an easy to make money. I'm the new guy in ADUs, I'm the new guy in cryptocurrency, the new guy in probate real estate. You're going to find that all those niches, the people who succeed are people who over time put the work in consistently and pay the dues and grind it out over time and make success at it. And that's true for me in probate real estate. I was not an overnight success. People who claim you can have overnight success in probate, I think, are misleading people. I think the same is true of cryptocurrency. There's people who make money in it, people who oversell it and hype it. I think there's a problem. And I think ADUs is one of those areas that people are real estate agents, investors jump on. Sounds easy, but man, depending on where you are, and I'm sure there's some cities that are easy, but I am telling you, City of LA is not one of them. I don't care what anybody says. So I appreciate you got your info in the chat box. Thank you. And I see the company put in there. And I'd say if you're interested in looking into that, feel free to reach out. That looks interesting, but I would just be careful when somebody promises that. I always say, give me 1 or 2 examples, let me look online. And I notice when I ask that, I get a different story, meaning I've had people approach me to come on the show. They want to promote, they do ADUs in particular. And they, wow, we do this and this and that. We make $100,000 for a client. Oh, great. And we've been doing all over Los Angeles. So you start in San Diego, we're all over LA now. Oh, great. Can you give me 2 properties I can check? Well, I don't have to. No, you said you did. Just give me 2 and I'll look them up. Well, really, we haven't closed any yet in Los Angeles. So definitely, trust and verify, and some of this information is verifiable. Certainly people's file dates for permit and completion dates, those are facts of life that somebody should be able to show you on a piece of paper. If they're legit, they're probably too busy to even bother marketing. But when they have a marketing program, they should take the time to show you those kind of numbers. I would urge you to look at that. Winston, you got your hand up. How can I help you today?
Yeah, I'm just following up on the same subject of ADU. I'm down here in Orange County. I have an old neighbor that's going through the process right now. It's been about 90 days. Curious, this is a question truly for Anders, if there was LA City, LA County, and bottom line, what's the cost going to be roughly to get that permit approved?
We have 2 things. You have the cost of construction and you have the cost of the permit and soft costs, right?
That's much cost of construction, but just the cost to get the permits approved and then begin construction.
I don't know if Andrew's still on. Here's what I'll tell you. I've had customers look at properties and to buy them to add an ADU doesn't make sense economically today in Los Angeles. Now there's a new guidelines passed that have to do with modular designs, which should speed theoretically, speed up the permit process. They aren't in effect here in LA yet. And the proof of the pudding is in the eating. But as of now, I can just tell you, I've had customers look at buying a house, add an ADU. There's not enough added value. I'm sure there's exceptions, but in general, not enough value to add up. And I'll add another part, little known fact. You add an ADU, you've now taken a single family home and put it into the rent stabilization ordinance in Los Angeles. So I have a client who bought a property that had an ADU. That was great. ADU in the back wasn't being used. He cleaned it up, got the ADU ready, put a nice furniture, Airbnb'd it, discovered that created the front house to be in rent control. Fighting with that lady for a while. Now he's finally got that he thinks under control or has an answer to that problem. And then that's the guy who in the back has the ADU, who now is claiming he came in on Airbnb. He's now squatting and a forced eviction.
That's crazy. Do you have any idea though, Bill, since Anders, I guess, didn't hear the question. Do you have any idea as to what it would cost just to get up to the permit approval process there, Billy?
I want to say it was about $200,000 square foot for the 1,200, 240, like $60,000 beyond the construction cost is what the quote I saw was on one of my clients. It was $300,000 to put ADU in a 1,200 square foot ADU on a property. The total cost is $300,000, soft and hard. So I want to say maybe about 60 was soft costs, permits and drawings and such. William Elkins, long time to see, man. How you doing?
Hey, Bill, I'm good. How you been?
Fantastic. Living the dream.
Good. I know. I'm trying to catch up to you, man.
I'm not slowing down. You better hurry up.
I just wanted to kind of present 2 opportunities. One is have an off-market condo listing in the Wilshire corridor. We just had a $150,000 price reduction. So we're at 1.7, now we're at 1.58. still a little flexibility there. It's a good opportunity for a buyer to go straight to escrow and avoid a bidding war. And one last thing is, yeah, there it is right there. Thank you, Bill.
Look at that. Women's got all bougie on us. Look at this.
I'm casual
It's a good pick.
today, man.
Yeah, look at this, man. Look at this property.
Yes, and that's the link in the chat. So please check
Look
it
at
out.
this.
And would love to do a showing. It's a real nice property and can get any questions answered. And that's when it's staged. And also one last thing, and Bill, you can relate to this. You know, I was going for a probate, and there's a lot of politics involved, multiple decision makers, and I've been going for it for about 5 months, and you know, I didn't get it, and I talked to the petitioner. It was some politics with his brother, but I still said, "Let me bring you a buyer," and he said, "Absolutely." So you don't want to bow down and quit too fast and too quick in a hurry. So it's a Pasadena flip probate. So if anybody has any interest in a good opportunity, I have the comp information. It definitely is a flip, and just give me a contact. I still would like to add some value to the petitioner, and that's really the main value, right? Is the offer, getting it sold. So and I have an inside scoop, so I know the petitioner, the seller, the owner. I know what price point we need to come in at. It is on the market now, but I do have the inside scoop. So if anybody has any interest, let me know.
I think I know the property you're talking about.
You may know, Bill, because you're all over it too, man. You know, maybe we can break
I'm
some
trying
bread
to.
together.
I think we saw that property, and they just listed about a week ago with a local agent. Yeah, maybe. Okay, interesting. Okay, good. Well, thank you. We appreciate the opportunity to talk about that. If you're interested, his info's in the chat box. Give him a holler, text him, email him, or call him in the property he has in the Wilshire Corridor on Cahuenga. No, where was that property at? I lost it. Wilshire Boulevard, 10660 Wilshire Boulevard. Oh, that's a nice area. Westwood. Cool. Who else has any questions, challenges, problems? How's the real estate market? Still red hot? Cooled from white hot to red hot? Warm? What do you guys see?
Depends on the price point and the zip code, Bill. The 600 to 900 still moving pretty quick, but it's slowed. I'd say it's slowed about 25, 30%. Lower than that and higher than that, it's slower, but it's still zipping along. No bubble popping, the no doomsday scenario. And then I'd say it's just, the usual pre-holiday slowdown, at least from what I'm seeing on the photography end.
Yeah, I'd agree. Well, Sean, my photographer, he went and saw 2 properties in Highland and Riverside. One closed today, one's in escrow closing in about 2-3 weeks. So everything he's touched for me is turned to gold. So thanks, Sean. Thanks for an update as well. Appreciate it. Okay, any other questions, challenges, problems? We can wrap up if we don't. Hey, I do want to promote though on Sunday, and if you know me, I work hard not to go out on weekends. I work really hard to during the week, Monday through Friday, so I don't have to. But this Sunday is a great event if you're interested in real estate investing, learning, or making connections. The Los Angeles Real Estate Grand Expo. It's Sunday this week, October 31st, which is Halloween, 9 to 6. So start at 9 o'clock. I'll probably won't get there till noon. We'll have a table there. We're a vendor at the Screwball Museum. It's right off the 405 freeway, kind of halfway between the 10 freeway and the 101, around Sunset and Sepulveda Boulevard, right off the 405 freeway. Free admission, free parking as well. So it's a little bit of a drive, but on a Sunday it won't be that busy. Free parking, free admission. This event, I don't know how many we'll get. The same group had an event last week on Thursday at UCLA. I had 250 people, and then he combines with 2 other groups. They're guessing they'll have 500 to 600 people there. So you have a number of investors, new investors, experienced investors, You'll have coaches, you'll have vendors, data vendors. I've met a great guy there. He is a landlord advocate. What a find he was. I could help me with squatters on some of my listings. So love to see you if you're there. Come by and say hi. I guess I'll be there probably from 12 till 3 or 4 or so. All the information you want is at lagrandexpo.com. I'll put that in the chat box as well. But definitely, if you're there, come by and say hi. I'd love to treat you, say hi, buy a cup of coffee or something, and let's chat in real
Same
life.
here, Bill. I'll see you there. We got a table too.
No way.
Yeah, of course.
Well, fantastic. I didn't know that. Were you at the thing on at UCLA?
I didn't go to the UCLA one now, but this one for sure I'm going to be there. I was kind of like dreading it because I've got my little 3-year-old being there all day on Halloween, but
Yeah.
it's okay. I want to meet everybody and just, meet some great contacts.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to be there either on a Sunday, but it's just too big to pass up. So I'll probably take off one day next week just to make up for it. But when you can be in a room and meet literally as many people as you can talk to the course of a day, in real estate, we're in the meet the people business. And so if there's 5 people in a room that want to buy or sell real estate, that's where I have to be. And if you want to buy or sell real estate, I would say for free parking in LA, unbelievable.
Done. Gonna be there.
I'm paying money to be there. I'm paying for table just to be there and have some friends come with me as well. So hope to see you there at Sunday, 9 to 6. I'll probably be there from noon on for a couple hours. So come by and say hi if you're there. Okay, so this is Bill Brook. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I'm coming up.
Too?
Sean, excellent. Sean was you were there on the Thursday event, right? No, you came to our beer event. We have an EXP Realty beer party once a month at the All Season Brewery. I saw Sean there and with Patricia as well. So it's nice to see people in real life. I have to tell you, it's very gratifying to see people in real life. So I strongly recommend, whatever your health situation is, take care of that, but be safe, be healthy. But that's it. If you go in real life, I think it's good for all of our souls to see people. So look, we do this every Tuesday, 3 p.m. realestateinvestingzoom.com. On Thursdays, we do probateweekly.com. We talk about probate issues. That's Thursdays at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. You can see that at probateweekly.com. All of my programs are on my YouTube channel. Bill Gross EXP is my YouTube channel. Love to see you there. Please like, share, subscribe, comment what you like to see, what you not like to see. Really, I'd like to be of service and help people be successful, make more income, and build more wealth. So thank you for your support, everybody. I appreciate being on the call today.